You're listening to the Vetted VA podcast, Your Journey Home. Nathan Nottingham is your host today, and he'll be chatting with Tyler Carlston.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Vetted VA podcast, Your Journey Home. Again, my name is Nathan Nottingham, and with me today is Tyler Carlston. Tyler is a loan officer with a small little old company called U Mortgage. Just kidding. They're actually rather big, and they've been growing rapidly. Fantastic operations and really focus on service. But Tyler, last I was catching up with you, you were in Texas, and now you're kind of not in Texas all the time. Like, where can people find you? Where are you at?
Yeah, I'm between Salt Lake City, Utah, and San Antonio, Texas. So you'll catch me at both places.
Nice. Both are really nice places, actually. And so, very different, but both really nice. I love that. Well, Tyler, you and I met back in 21, probably actually before that. Actually, I want to say 2019 is what I'm guessing. But met, and at the time you were not an originator. You were building a business instead, doing lead aggregation, I believe.
Yeah, no, I think it was 2019, probably around that time.
Yeah.
But no, that's how I got into this business. Is I had a marketing agency that catered to real estate, and more specifically, I niched down into helping people generate more VA loan business for themselves.
Mm-hmm. So how did you connect then with Vetted VA, and now you're a loan officer? Like, what would that journey look like? Why'd you take that change?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny actually. I've known Chris for a very long time, and he's actually what got me into all of this. And I believe I was at a mortgage broker event and just trying to pick up more clients for my marketing company. And I think he pulled me aside, like, "Hey, I see you online. You're doing all this VA stuff." I remember we had a 3-hour conversation about how veterans get targeted, how veterans get mistreated, and companies try to profit off the backs of veterans the most. And that kind of irritated me. And so I left that event with a completely different mindset of my business was doing very well at the time, but turns out I was working with a lot of companies that were taking advantage and charging more to veterans than regular consumers. And that didn't sit well with me. And so I made a big change of I'm going to fire 90% of my client base, and I'm going to rebuild with people that I know are going to do right by the consumer. So it's a very scary time for me. My income dropped 90%. But that's just how I am as a person. Like, I need to do the right thing always. And so, that kind of drew me in even closer to doing what I do. And eventually I just I really fell in love with this. I didn't serve myself, and I didn't have very many family who served, but really getting close with that allowed me to see what type of an impact I can have on someone's life. And homeownership impacted me at the early age of 22 as well. So doing that and seeing how I can impact veterans allowed me to get into this business. And that's what ultimately allowed me to jump in and be like, you know what, this is what I'm going to do.
That's fantastic. You jumped. I mean, I remember talking to you. You were studying for your 20-hour. It was a challenge to get through that. It's not an easy course. It's not an easy test to get your license done. And you finally got through that, and you're like, all right, I'm all in. I'm going deep on this, and really kind of jump with both feet. I think it was right at that point, you're like, I'm in. Let's go, Vetted VA. Like, train me. You jumped in all the way. So, what was that standard? I mean, you had known, being not a loan originator, but kind of working in the industry on a different side of it, you had made a selective decision with which to serve to the best of your ability, but also work with people that had the same like-minded concept. Why in the world did you choose training with Vetted VA to put yourself through that after getting your test, your license?
Yeah, no, it's funny. Like I probably started training for this before I ever even closed a VA loan. But again, like I said, when I got into this business, I knew who I wanted to serve. I knew the community I wanted to help impact and make things right. Because there's so much. I mean, that's why I work so hard. There's so much that needs to change in this business. And I knew Chris set up a community and a program for me to be the best. And in this business, you either gain experience by doing loans or educating yourself. And so at the time, like I said, I jumped into it. I didn't just have loans pouring in. I'm completely self-driven. At the time, I just moved to San Antonio, not knowing anybody, so nobody knew who I was. So I didn't have any
That's
easy
right. Yeah. It
handouts in this business.
was
And
a
to
big
top that
change.
off, yeah, and I jumped in at the end of 21, and 22 is the
Mm.
craziest market in history. But I knew, I was like, my client, like if I'm coming in wanting to serve this community, I need to be the best I can be. I need to push myself. I need to do the things that are hard. And there's really no harder VA training than this. And so, like I said, I've known Chris for a long time. So it was a no-brainer for me. Like, okay, I'm going to take this business seriously. This is what I'm going to do full time. I need to get vetted VA. And so that was why I jumped into it first.
You like to overcome a lot of issues, and I think when you produce content, you're always looking at what's happening in the marketplace. So VA loan myths and debunking some of those misconceptions. In 2025, we still hear just a lot of myths, or a lot of people saying, "Oh, the VA told me I can't do this," and you come to find out, no, they didn't. That was not the VA. That was somebody else entirely. Um, we hear things such as like VA loans take longer to close, the sellers won't accept them. What is the biggest misconception that you run into, and how do you combat it?
So what I've found is there's lots of, like you had mentioned, there's lots of misconceptions out there by professionals on both sides. So lenders
Hmm.
and real estate agents, and of course clients. And so whenever I'm talking to someone, I've always just found it's best to argue with facts. So
Yeah.
it's not just me talking from personal experience, because who knows if that's true or not. People lie all the time. And so what I try to do is just um, go with facts that they cannot argue with, right? So if a listing agent and for an offer we're placing says, "Hey, VA appraisals take forever," I'm like, well, actually, per the VA guidelines, this is going to be back within 10 business days. Here's the timeline. Here's the screenshot. You can't argue with that. And so what I've found is anytime I deal with those common myths that people have, it's just present them with facts. It's very hard to argue. Now, of course, if they do, they're still ignorant, but at the end of the day, I've done what I needed to and presented them with the data they need to make an informed decision.
So how do you cycle those facts, and how do you verify, validate, backstop, and really understand like the facts are the facts and not just another opinion from a different source?
Yeah, I think it all comes down to this training as well and being part of vetted VA. It's trust but verify. And that's
Mhm.
something that I've taken a lot further than just this group. I've ingrained it in every aspect of my life. And it's like, like if I'm going to put out or say something, like I'm going to need stuff to verify all of this as well. So no, just doing the little bit of extra work to go through and get my facts straight before I make any claims or anything like that is very important to me.
You you've done a lot of storytelling. I think that's a big thing that you like to do with your social media. I like to watch and say, I mean, you'll talk about, hey, here's the condition. Here's what we just went through with this borrower. Here's how we overcame this issue. What are some of those stories that stand out to you the most in these last few years you've been in this business, and the way you've been serving and operating, that you would share both to say, look, even if you think you can't overcome it, you can. There's ways to do it, and maybe a story, maybe something that's happened that just has resonated with you that you'll remember forever. Like it's going to be one of those core memories in lending.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the nice thing about doing the amount of VA loans that I'm able to do is I have a lot of experience and a lot of stories of really cool instances. I'd say my favorite type of deals I get to close and the favorite type of clients I get to help are people that did not think it was possible. Right. And
Right.
so I'm talking to people that go to the Veterans United, the USA, the Navy Federals, and they get declined. They get turned down. They're like, "Hey, you can't buy a house right now." And then they're left hopeless. They're like, "Oh, shoot, I thought I could be able to buy a house."
Hmm.
And then I
Right.
come in and be like, that's actually false. Here's how we can get you into a house. Those are probably my favorite instances is putting on my superhero cape and getting things done when others can't, and just reigniting that belief in people that people have about obtaining homeownership in this country. And that's probably one of my favorite loans to do. Now, they're not easy, they're not fun,
No.
they're very
Yep.
time intensive, they are hard. They're, like I said, people turn them down for a reason, because if they were easy to get done, they would have gladly made their money off of them. However, the hard loans is where I find the most satisfaction. I mean, I just last year I had a client, she had like a 530 credit score. And she just went through a really rough patch a few years ago, but her and her husband, both disabled veterans, got back on their feet financially and didn't really have any issues. But here's the thing. Everybody shooed them away. Like, oh, you have a 530 credit? No, I don't want to work with you. Everybody, I think she got turned down by like 5 different places, but then she saw online somewhere that like I work miracles and I get things done, and she gave me a call like, Tyler, you're our last hope. We want to give this a shot.
Right.
And so I took a look at everything, and I was like, guys, like this, yeah, it's not pretty, but at the end of the day, this is completely doable. Here's how I'm going to get this done. And before I gave them that reassurance, I made sure to take that extra step of like, you know what, I'm going to verify everything first, but I'm going to take that extra step in sending this into an underwriter to review it and get their opinion first. Because again, the big thing with me, I've never had a deal fall through, and I never want it to be like, hey, give somebody false hope if especially after the roller coaster of going through 5 different lenders and going through and getting told, no, we can probably get this done, because they wouldn't have started the process if they didn't think they could do it. And then they end up getting turned down. So I didn't want to go through that roller coaster again with them, like, because that's emotionally draining. And I truly care about my clients. I don't want that to happen. So I got underwriter approval, sent off their pre-approval letter, and got them closed like 30, 40 days later. And made no underwrites, like I said, they're not the fastest loans in the world. So it wasn't like a 20-day close like normal. But at the end of the day, we got them done. We still stay in touch. I send them cards. They always give me calls. Like, they're fantastic clients. And at the end of the day, those are the type of stories that I love doing the most, is those hard loans. Like I said, lots of people won't touch them, but I say bring them on.
So they won't touch them, and I think that there's a concept there that we need to clarify. They won't touch them because as a licensed mortgage professional, you can't just charge somebody for a best effort. You can't just say, hey, you're going to pay me $1,500 and I'll see what I can do. You only get paid if the loan actually closes. And so a lot of the work that you're describing in that scenario specifically was you working, quote unquote, for free until they could get qualified and actually close a loan, at which point you'd make some money. A little bit, right? Based on the commission of the loan. What you had to do to get them pre-underwritten or to get a manual underwrite review done by the lender ahead of time to get them the confirmation that, yes, we can write this loan if you get it from, this purchase price or less. That's a lot of effort without any assurance of reward. And I think it's important that we point that out for people listening if they're not professionals. Like, you have to understand, like, it's a goodwill move. Like, look, I want to help you, and I'm not sure I'm going to get made anything for this, but it's my desire to serve.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that just comes down to just, I mean, I know you can't see it fully behind me, but like I try to lead every single day with a servant's heart, and like lead everything I do is selflessly. And so like, I don't care if I could do this job and support my family and live the lifestyle I want for free, all means. It's not about the money for me. It's
Right.
about helping people. And so like at the end of the day, like I'm more than happy to give any scenario a shot, because we're going to either walk away with 2 things. Either I'm going to get you approved and you're going to be happy, or B, I'm going to put you on a better path to how we can get you approved and give you a timeline and actionable steps to get you there. Because just because you've been told no once doesn't mean no forever. It just means not right now. And so that's one word in my vocabulary I don't like using, is no. It's like, no, it's not no. It's just not right now. Here's what we need to do. Here's what to expect. And so, no, I just had a lady last week contact me on LinkedIn, and she was going through Veterans United and was like getting to just drag along, like, hey, I don't have an approval yet. Turns out her credit was pretty shaky in the mid 500s. But again, just like, talking to her, I think I'm pretty confident I can get this done. Let's go the extra step again. Sent it off to a lender, got the underwriter to say, hey, this looks good if it stays under this price point, and got her pre-approval out yesterday, actually, and we're already submitting offers. And so again,
Nice.
100%. By all means, I'm going to do whatever it takes. I don't care if I make a dime. I just want to help people.
So let's talk about that. You've now brought up a couple that are mid 500 credit scores, and you're looking at them and you're thinking through them. Knowing the strength of the VA loan, what are a couple things that you're looking for when somebody's got shaky credit, but you're still like, you know what, I think we got a good shot here? What are some of those mile markers that other professionals can hear and learn from, or veterans or VA eligible homeowners that are consumers that are listening to this could be like, oh wait, I think that's me. Like, what are some of those tricks or things that you've learned that you're like, no, that's why, yeah, I know that lender's going to say no because of the credit, but let's look at other qualifying factors here.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, the easiest way I explain this to consumers when I'm talking with them is it's not so much the score, because you and I both know the VA itself does not have a minimum score. And so we're going to go ahead and like for our lenders, for example, we could go down to 500, but it's all lender specific. And so if you're at a 600, but a lender has a 620, they can't get that done. Or so at the end of the day, what I tell them is, why is our credit there? Let's break it down and look, because a lot of the times people, like especially during the COVID times and stuff, people went through hard times. Maybe they missed a few payments on cards 3 years ago, but have been perfectly fine since, or maybe they had a nasty divorce and X ruined their credit, or whatever it may be. There's always a reason why. And so that to me is the most important thing, is how recent is all of this stuff and what caused this. And so if somebody tells me, hey, I just went through tough times, I got laid off 3 years ago, couldn't pay my credit cards for 3 months. Okay, that's 3 years ago. Let's look at the extenuating circumstances and find out what we need to do. And so we just have to look at other positive areas of the application, right? So if they have good income, but their credit's not the best, that's what's called a compensating factor. And those are the things that we need to look at when doing these tougher files, which are usually manual underwrites, is those compensating factors. And so like good income, low DTI, high residual income, no payment shock, low consumer debt, all of those things are compensating factors that help us. Now, usually with manual underwrites, they usually require a couple of them. Now, you don't need every single one. So the one I just got approved, she had a low DTI. She had some issues like a couple years ago, but she had a low DTI. She had a stable salary job, which is very important. She's 100% disabled, which is income that will always continue. And her residual was sky high. And so just those things, she didn't really have any debt anymore either. And so a lot of those things are like, oh, those are strong compensating factors that give confidence to the lender, because you have to put yourself in their shoes, right? So like if I'm going to lend somebody $400,000 to buy a home, how confident do I feel in them paying me back? And again, most of the time with manual underwrites, it's common sense. At least with good lenders, it's common sense underwriting. And so if, hey, I went through a rough patch 3 years ago, credit's in the tank, I haven't found a way to repair it, that's lots of people's situation. Like lots of people have bad credit because they just don't know how to get it back up and don't have the guidance. And they think they can't buy a house because they got told no once. But it's like, no, just keep looking, find somebody who is very knowledgeable in those type of situations. And as long as you have compensating factors, you're going to be able to get approved more than likely.
You also mentioned something there, and I think we want to lay that out. You mentioned, like, especially in this scenario, she has income coming from either disability rating and structure, and we handle that a little differently. Just because you're getting a check of, say, I mean, easy numbers, $1,000, that's not what we're using for qualification. We get to do something very special in the VA loan. What is that? Why does it help?
Yeah, so one of the things with any untaxed income, you're able to gross it up on VA. So if you're making $1,000 a month on your VA disability, because it's untaxed, what we're able to do is that $1,000 to us. Of course, after we calculate residual income and stuff, when we're looking at DTI, it counts as $1,250 for us. And so that extra bit of income, for example, this lady was 100% rated. She had, let's just say, $4,000 a month. I have almost $5,000 a month that I'm able to count towards income plus her salary to help get her approved. And so grossing up is something that a lot of people, if they don't do VA loans a ton, they don't know they can gross it up. Just like if you're active duty, you can gross up BAH and BAS and things like that. A lot of people don't know that. Now, of course, you have to take in the residual before you gross things up, because at the end of the day, it's just to help lower that DTI. But that's the thing a lot of people miss.
And that gross up is so important. If you're listening to this and you have disability and you receive that, and you're like, oh man, it's not that much. Well, it's actually more than you're considering. And the reason they do it is because when we do DTIs, we're basing debt payoff based against gross income. But we all know that you're not receiving your gross income; you're receiving your income minus taxes and I almost said impounds. That's not what I mean. Well, against taxes and obligations, right? So when you have untaxed income, well, the reality is, to make it apples to apples, they have to basically add back in what the taxable amount would be to make it apples to apples to a gross income. That's why you get this gross up, which is just phenomenal. And I've seen it turn the tides for borrowers regularly when they're looking at it, like, oh, we can't get it. And you're like, yeah, you can. Here's how it's going to work.
Yeah, no, exactly. And my favorite times, obviously disability is great, but when you're dealing with active duty, you can gross up that BH and that BAS, and that can
Yep.
add $900,000 to a file, which is going to increase their approval by $600 and keep the DTI the same or lower that number to get them approved. So it can make a huge impact.
I love that. We are looking at, I had this other question for you, and then I was like, here it is, right there. What's changing? State of VA loans. What in your ideas, market shifts, interest rates, what kind of is changing right now that you're watching or that you're expecting in the near future?
I would say the biggest change I'm seeing is just people are getting more comfortable with the current market being the new normal. Now,
Yeah.
obviously, with the change of in 22 from interest rates going from 2% up to 7 in just 9 months, that was a big
Right.
shake. Like you didn't know, like, oh, is this temporary? And a lot of us thought it was, and it's
We
just
hoped.
stuck.
We
Yeah, we
hoped.
hoped, and it just has stuck around. And so I
Yeah.
think going now into a third full year of this, I think it's just becoming a new normal in the market, right? So people aren't as shocked by interest rates, and they know, hey, if I'm going to sell and try to upsize, my 2-3% rate I have is not going to be feasible. And so I think in 23 and 24, there were a lot of like people just hoping the market would turn around and thought it'd be temporary, which ended up not being as temporary as we hoped. And but I think the biggest change right now is just people's attitude with the market. I think with how it is right now, it's just becoming the new normal, and people are
Yeah.
jumping back in like, I was waiting for interest rates to go down, but guess what? I put it on pause 2 years ago because I wanted them to go down, but they're still the same where they were. But now
Yeah.
my home's 50 grand more than I was in the same home is 50 grand more now. And so people are starting to realize that. So, I mean, I just have seen a huge uptick, especially in the last few months, of people jumping back into the market. And just again, I'm not having those shock conversations like I was in
Right.
22 and 23. And so I think it's just people becoming a lot more normalized with the interest rates and how the current market is.
I love that point too. The opportunity cost is a real thing when you decide to or not do something. There is a cost to it. If you decide to do it, maybe the cost is a higher monthly payment and interest rate than you wanted. But if you decide not to do it, maybe the cost is a higher cost on the property that when you do decide to do it. Like there is a weighted balance there. But I would agree with you. I'm seeing the same thing. So final question. One thing I was looking at this, you've been in the business now a few years. You've been you found your place, you found your footing. What advice to loan officers out there, even to real estate agents? There are so many out there that just don't truly understand the VA loan or how to serve veterans properly. If you could give them one piece of advice, one thing to an LO or a real estate agent who wants to level up service to veterans, what is it?
I would say find a partner that can help educate you. And so that's one
Yeah.
of my big value adds to real estate agents is I explain to them my background and how I work with 70% VA loans and do 50 plus a year. And I have all this experience and I know all this knowledge. And I use that as a value add to agents. Be like, hey, look, military is a great niche and it's very fulfilling work. If you want to start serving more VA home buyers, here's how we're going to do this. I'm going to provide you with the education. I don't mind holding your hand. And so the biggest piece of advice I could give to anybody that's looking to break more into VA is to find somebody, whether it's somebody that you work with or find a business partner like a real estate agent or mortgage lender that is very knowledgeable in it, and just learn from them and go through the transactions. And it's not as scary as people make it seem. It's the easiest loan there is, in my opinion. Granted, I've done a lot of them and I got it down, but to me, it's the easiest, the most lenient loan there is. It's the best thing on earth. But if you want to do more of it, just you need to surround yourself with people that do them and have a lot of knowledge. That's why I love Vetted VA, because I'm constantly around other very like-minded individuals who have the same focus as I do, and I'm constantly making myself better and learning more. And you just have to do the same, whether you're real estate agent or lender. It's find a partner or go indulge in a training or two, or maybe even go work at a company that's very VA focused too. I mean, like I said, that's
Hmm.
exactly why I work where I work and who I work under, because he's one of the best at what he does, and I get to learn from him every single day. So, I mean, that's probably the biggest piece of advice, is just surround yourself with others who are where you want to be.
I love it, man. Well, thank you so much for taking time to share your story and the journey you're on and how you serve. If you're listening to this and want to reach out and talk to Tyler, you'll be able to get his information in the show notes, but also on vetiva.com. Check out Texas, and he's there. You'll find his information. If you're in the Facebook group for VVA as a veteran, a spouse, active duty service member, or the like, you'll be able to find us there, or in the VVA for Professionals group, which is just for every professional if they're going through the vetting process or not. We love having you there as well. With that, thank you again, Tyler. I really appreciate your time, taking the time out. I know I'm probably guessing you've got a lot of phone calls to return as you kind of move forward and getting more pre-approvals out there. So thank you for what you do in the service, and we'll see you in your squad duty. But take care.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Nathan.
Thank you for listening to the VVA podcast, Your Journey Home. We hope this information has been helpful, enjoyable, engaging, supportive. But here's the biggest call to action for you. If you are a veteran, a service member, a family member of the same, and you have earned or have access to the VA home loan eligibility and have questions, please feel free to join us at VetiVA on Facebook. Go to facebook.com, search for the VetiVA group, and you'll find it. Answer some of the questions to enter, and once you do that, you're good to go. If you're a professional, a real estate agent, lender, insurance agent, you know the drill. Well, as a professional, we'd love to have you join the professionals only group. We do all the same information, but at a little bit different scope because, well, of how you're coming into that information to support yourself and the other consumers that you work with. So please join VetiVA on Facebook or VetiVA for Professionals on Facebook. Follow us on TikTok, wherever you can find it. And as always, all the white papers, the resources, the documents, and the training, the free training courses are available at vetiva.com. You'll find them all there. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. My email is nathan@vettedva.com. I'm the COO, and I'm ready to help. Glad you tuned in for this episode, and looking forward to bringing you the next one. Take care.